So what I will tell you is, we have to go back to the core of the problems that we're facing. The number one issue that affects everything in our state in South Carolina, in every other state and in our country is spending. There is no value for a dollar. Absolutely no value for a dollar. And the perfect example of that was the bailout. The bailout was a quick fix to get everybody to get quiet. But what did it do? We just found out that that bank bailout, all of that money, instead of the banks releasing the money and doing what they were supposed to, what they do, they went and invested in other banks. It's costing trillions of dollars, and our Republicans did that. So we now have to define what is a Republican. Do we want a conservative or do we want a Republican? Because in the state of South Carolina, we've got a Republican Senate, a Republican House, and a Republican governor. Yet when I went into office in 2005, we grew government by $1 billion in 2005, 2006, and 2007. And we can't tell you where the money went. So the first thing we've got to do is get back to the value of a dollar. Understand that it doesn't fall from trees. Understand that really sometimes when the country's going through a hard time, what's the best thing we can do is go through the burn. Prioritize and say, what do we really need to be spending our dollars on? Turn around and look at the fact that is government supposed to be paying for these things? And when we go back and realize the government's not supposed to be paying for these things, when we understand the value of a dollar, and when we understand when the country's going through a bad time, what's the best thing we can do is take care of our small businesses, take care of our people, remember the role of government, and go through the burn, because it forces everybody to reform and fix what they're doing. Small businesses right now that are having a tough time in the economy, what are they doing? They're cutting back, they're looking at their budgets, they're figuring out how to streamline so that they can get strong again. And if we turn around and we give our small businesses profit margins, if we turn around and get cash flow in our small businesses again, what are they going to do? They're going to hire people. Now, we went through an incredibly tough stimulus fight in the state of South Carolina because Governor Sanford fought having to take the stimulus. And it was national news that he fought having to take the stimulus. When it came to the House and we had to deal with the budget first, the first two people I called Senator DeMint's office and I called Governor Sanford's office. And I said, we've got this stimulus vote, we've got to deal with it in our budget. Number one, do we have to take it? And number two, what does it mean? And both of their answers were, we don't know. So all of this was forced down on the states and no one knew. It was a 600-page document, no one knew what it meant. Now the entire country and our Republican-controlled state legislature said, well, we need to take it because if we don't take it, some other state will. That was the number one fight they had, was we better take it before anybody else will. Well, you know what we're dealing with now? A stimulus that we were forced to take, that they said would take us out of the holes that we were in education and public safety and all those things. And now I've got school districts coming out saying, this isn't bailing us out of the holes that we were in, this is actually requiring us to create new programs. So what did we just do? We just ran up the credit card, and 2 years from now we're going to have less money to pay for. So I think that we, as a public and as elected officials, we're going through the burn right now. But the one thing I say is I'm proud to be Republican. I am. And my Republican Party brags about how there's been no new taxes. And they brag about how they've given all this tax relief away. But my comment continues to be, it doesn't matter how much you give in tax relief if you don't reduce the spending. If you continue to grow government, tax relief doesn't matter. If you continue to grow government, anything else that you do doesn't matter. What does matter is to reduce spending and reduce the control that government has in people's lives. When we do that, we will get back to where we need to be. But I do want to tell you, because I think it's incredibly important, as Republicans, we feel somewhat beaten down. We feel somewhat confused by the situation that we're in. I think the first thing we have to do is understand that we were part of the problem. I think the second thing we have to understand is that we are going through the burn. And then the last thing we have to remember is some of the best lessons are when you go through the burn. Your parents teach you that when you're growing up. The best lessons are when you go through the room. So what we can learn from this is, let's not elect Republicans just because they know the talking points. Make sure they know the lessons associated with those talking points. Make sure that they know the actions that are required to make those talking points real. Now, I'm running for governor in the state of South Carolina, as he told you. It is an interesting time, and that South Carolina was on the national scene for way too long. But what I do see is that it's a great opportunity, because this is a time where I don't want South Carolina to just turn around and go through a governor's race. I want South Carolina to know what good government looks like. I want South Carolina to understand what reform is. And I want us to be a state that can be an example of what every state should look like. And for us to turn around and show the federal government what they need to look like. We've got an opportunity. I don't want you to be discouraged. I saw my friend Suzette earlier, and she said this is just a discouraging time. I'm actually excited by this, because there's no place to go but up at this point. We have to look at the fact that there's a lot of good that can come from this. But that will come when people understand the power of their voice. That will come when you get involved and you get active. And that's what I'm going to ask you to do. If you live in South Carolina, I want you to get active in this governor's race, because I think it's going to be one of the most important races that we've had. If you don't live in South Carolina, I still want you to get active, because I want you to understand we're going to change our government one state at a time. And what I can promise you is South Carolina is going to show what an accountable government can look like. South Carolina is going to turn around and show what it's like to trust your government again. And South Carolina is going to show what conservatives need to look like. It's not about having a Republican majority. It's about having a conservative majority. So that's what we'll continue to do. It's been a real pleasure talking to you, and I will open it up for questions.